Peace and blessings, family.
Yes, yes, yes.
Here, how you doing, ladies?
I'm good.
Very good. Very good this morning.
So it's Wednesday. So, yeah, could you start us off with a prayer?
Uh, yes, I would be happy to. I call on the creator and the creatrix, the gods and the goddesses, Olodumare, Olofi, Olorun, all of the deities. And I ask first that you accept our gratitude and our thanksgiving for bringing us breath on this wonderful day and that allowing us to wake up in our right minds. And I ask that you direct our feet, you direct our mouths, you direct our minds as we come together in this sacred space that we have built along with you, um, so that we can learn and that we can teach. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo.
So,
Yeah. All right. So today we're gonna talk about the Ori. So what is the Ori? I'm gonna
Mm.
play.
your Ori is your personal Godhead.
Say
Is
it again.
your personal Godhead, your individual Orisha, your piece of God, your piece of Olodumare, your piece of the Creator. If you think of okay, picture this: a stream of water coming down like out of a faucet, right? If you set a colander under it, you get a bunch of droplets coming out of each hole, right? Consider that that stream of water is the very mystic existence of God, the Creator, Olodumare, however you call it, the Great Spirit. And each one of those droplets is an individualization or an individual manifestation or a unique piece of that same mystic existence and manifests as you. You're one of those droplets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a wonderful. I'm going to use that now because that's a wonderful analogy. I love it. I love it. It makes it very clear. I'm a drop of the Creator, and so
Yeah,
is everybody else.
yeah.
Although sometimes you wouldn't know it, but anyway.
It's in there. It's in there.
Mhm. Mhm.
There. It
Yeah.
just depends on if we're living from that place or if we're living from the outside in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, your Ori is your consciousness, your destiny, your guide, your personal Orisha, your little touch of the magic of creation.
Yes.
Um, and I shouldn't say little touch because each drop of the ocean is the ocean. It is
Hmm.
each in each drop of the ocean you have the entire ocean, and
Yeah.
each drop of or each ori we have the creator.
Yeah.
So huh, we have to act like that. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
It's just it's an orientation shift. I think like um, when you're growing, like it's a choice too that I think we make in our the way we organize ourselves, right? It's one thing to create a community that's interdependent, meaning that everyone's aware of their own divinity, their own power, their own ori, right? The power that's there, and then choose to link up with others. Like this is our responsibility to our community is that we behave and we relate to each other in a particular way. But a lot of times what happens is we choose codependency rather than interdependency, meaning that even your parents can choose codependency and choose to relate to you in that way because they make you responsible for their approval, make you responsible for their feelings, make you responsible for, and so that's generally how we're taught to have relationships. Like if you don't do what makes me happy, then there's something wrong with you, and therefore I have to cancel you. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not really how it works. So you're not meant for anyone to walk over you. You're not here to be a doormat. You're not in here. This is not a contest of enduring suffering. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we have a personal responsibility for our experience in the earth, and that information is housed in your ori, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to learn how to live from the inside out, how to bring that out of you, how to tap into that. And when you tap into it, what's beautiful about it is that because each drop of the ocean is the ocean, you have access to all of the divine intelligence in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it, you couldn't handle, we couldn't handle knowing everything consciously at one time. Like that'll blow your fuse. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
at the same time, yeah, it's there. So then we can walk in that confidence, we can walk in the comfortability of knowing that we are connected in that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We don't want to blow the fuses because, and that's why it's so interesting when you can look back on your lifetime experiences and see that you couldn't handle or you couldn't um, deal with some of the things that happen to you as you get older when you were in your 20s. You just
Mm-hmm.
you had to have those experiences of the
Yeah.
20s and 30s or whatever it was, the 40s, whatever
Yeah.
you need to have. But then there's some of us who are still children when we're 70.
Yeah.
We ain't learned shit. We haven't learned anything um, over all of those years because we've been stuck in one way of thinking or stuck in dogma of some
Yeah.
sort.
Yeah.
Um, and so we haven't even listened to our ori or our gut. Because when we
Uh-huh.
speak about the ori, I always go to the gut because you have to speak about that part of you that's at your belly button and that's at your navel, because that is where spirit is. You know, spirit is all around you, but that is the central point for spirit. And so we really have, and that's when we our gut speaks to us. If
Mm-hmm.
we have the ears to hear and the ability and the mind set to really listen to what our gut is saying, it will, for the most part, never lead you wrong.
Yes.
Um, and as you have those experiences in your 20s and 30s and whatever, the basic question, and things are going to happen. We all make mistakes along the way. God knows. You always have to ask yourself, what did I learn from this experience? Not blaming somebody else or blaming another organization, the government, blame, but not blame. Sometimes we like to blame God. Um, there's no blame here. It's an experience that you had. What did you learn? Now you
Right.
got to figure out what you learned for it, because if you don't, it's going to come back in another form, but it will
Yeah.
come back because it's
Yeah.
a lesson that you came here to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So always ask that question of yourself. what did I learn from this experience? A lot of times when we're in relationships, and I'm talking about, well, it can be intimate relationships or just friends or whatever, but mostly we learn it in our intimate relationships. Um, we always, once that separation comes, we always look at it as we get mad about it, or we get sad about it, or whatever it is we do. But
Yeah.
it really, if you can find what drew you to that relationship, what kept you in that relationship, and what joy you got from that relationship, that supersedes or can supersede all of the misery. Um, Now, I'm not talking about a relationship where I'm not talking about a situation where you've been emotionally or physically abused. I'm talking about just two people who don't get along. You have those relationships along the way. I had enough of them myself.
Yeah.
And you go your separate ways and you feel bad about it and you feel hurt and you feel, oh God. And the worst thing you can do is say, is there something wrong with me? It usually is nothing wrong with you. It's nothing wrong with the other person either. It's just two people who came together to learn whatever that lesson is, and maybe it's more than one, to have a wonderful experience with one another, to share that time together, and then move on. It's very easy. I don't know why people get all upset about it. Just
That's I mean, that's from experience. You could say that now, but when you're young and hot, that don't. Everything is a problem. It's
I
everything is
yes.
on 10. So as you become more wise, like I think you cool off a little bit and you get to look at all sides of things. But as when you're young, it's like it's very difficult to have that kind of focus. I mean, some people do, but I think it's rare. But I want to back up a minute and ask you about something.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you were talking about intuition and gut feelings and following that intuition, right? And we
yeah.
know that that's a big part of the way that your ancestors, your Ori, you get information downloads like that, intuitive hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the one of the qualities of Obatala or Orishala is that you get that he wields judgment without emotion, like without bias, right? And so, and intuition is said to be information without explanation or direction without explanation. Like, do
Mm-hmm.
this, and you don't necessarily know why you get the urge to go this way or you get the urge to do this thing or look into this, but it's an intuitive hit and it doesn't have a lot of like supporting information. It's just to guide you along your path, right? And to
Right.
begin to trust that is so I'm kind of trying to glance over at the comments too. So Yaya is on there. She said Air Egbe Room is directing you as well. So also you get information from your
Oh,
Egbe that way.
yes. You
And
get information from a lot of places, but go ahead.
right. So
Mm.
what I want to understand, because I know that there's a part of each of us that corresponds with each Orisha. And what can you say about connecting that the part of that clarity that Obatala brings to help you fulfill your destiny and help you along your path with your intuition, like how to keep that balance? Like, are there practices that we can do that can help to bring that together for us?
Uh, well, you can feed a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. um, hmm. That's a good
Because I
question.
noticed that, like, one thing is that a lot of the foods that Obatala eats are also the foods that you would give to your Ori.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's yes, for sure. But what I was going to say, isn't that funny? What I was going to say, and I was saying it just for myself. It may apply to others, but mm, this is a hard one. I just got to spit it out. For
Okay.
me, for me, Obatala and Maori, and I know that these are two separate entities, beings, energies. These are two separate energies. But for
Mhm.
me, my head is my Ori and my Obatala. And it's almost as if they are one for
Yes.
me.
Okay.
When we were talking, we mentioned just a few minutes ago that when you're young, yes, you and you're in a relationship, and this becomes very hurtful or all of that for you. I
Mhm.
have to tell you, and I'm being totally honest. I mean, it's not that I didn't feel maybe a little hurt or, for me, it was more, it's a change in my life at this time when that person and I decide to go our separate ways. Well, now I'll have to change where I live, maybe. And it was all those mundane things. I
Yeah.
it wasn't, and I don't know if this is true of Batalas or not, a lot of them or not, but I was able to separate without um, feeling anger or any of that. I just wanted to find a place to live, have something to eat, have a job, and go about my business and find somebody else. Um,
I think you know what that might be true of a lot of women if they're honest with themselves. Like, um, I feel like this is another piece of the same conversation too, that we don't have independent thoughts very often. Like that's not the trend. I will say that there are people who do, and they are usually um, they stand out. We'll say that they tend to be thought of as unique or eccentric or whatever. But I know that for the most part, we do a lot of recycling of thoughts, right? So,
mhm,
and your thought will choose your reaction,
mhm, mhm,
you know. And so, if we don't place ourselves like hit the the gravity of having um, being a part of the creator, right? Um, means that you are always expanding, you're always creating, you're always like that is a part of your being, of who you are inherently. If you are not having your own thoughts about things, that doesn't mean that your thoughts have to be different from everybody else, but they do have to be your own. They have to
oh,
be self-generated, right? And
mhm,
so feel just as unique as your fingerprint, you'll have your own way of seeing the world. That's why multiple people have different accounts of the same event. Because
exactly.
it's also about perspective, right? So
Mhm,
when we talk about being objective to things and seeing situations from all sides as priests, as diviners, as spiritual practitioners, or just to get a handle on the way that we see the world. Like this is important to teach because people hold a lot of what is divine about them inside, and it's locked up because what's happening on the outside of their humanity, because everything that you do is subject to your humanity long as you're in the earth, right? So
mhm,
either
mhm.
your head leads your body or your body leads your head. And by that I
Yeah.
mean either the divine, your ori, the divine part of you acts as the leadership in your life, or your humanity is leading that, and then you're doing your best to distance yourself, like the concept of a faraway God, right? That is present in a lot of Western religions. So since we live in the West, but to get back to what we were saying, I'll make a long story long. Um, we do like, I think I've seen a lot of people, and I've done it myself, take someone else's account of something that happened in my life and then react according to what I thought the appropriate reaction should be, rather than how I really felt, right? Because if you think about it, and we're talking about relationships, women have the capacity, more so than most men, to have multiple relationships at the same time. Like, our bodies can take more sex than a man's body can take. I mean, I'm just keeping it real.
Yeah, no. I agree. I agree.
That somehow, yeah. So, I mean, if you get past the procreation piece and all of that, like, yes, we can carry one baby at a time, okay? But outside of procreation, if we're talking about sex in relationships, and we're talking about emotional intelligence and the capacity to be present in a relationship, like, women in general, this is a generalization, which I rarely do, have a higher capacity for that than most men. So the truth is that if anybody was going to have more than one mate, probably women are more equipped for that. If anybody's going to have more than one sexual partner, women are probably more equipped for that. Unless, emotionally you've made a different choice for yourself. If you just go straight on the physical side of it, and the emotional capacity, like, so that there's that piece. You know what I'm saying? That I would be completely understandable. Also, Ia says you are aligned with your initiated Orisha, but your Iwa, has more to do with your choice in relationships. Okay. Polygamy versus polyandry, but also not even in committed relationships, but just in general, like the way that we maintain our relationships is very different. It's very different. It has more, for the most part, intimacy. And I'm not going to say that men don't have intimacy in their relationships with one another, but in the West, it's frowned upon.
Yes.
Also, just in general, who a man's supposed to be and all this. Like, when we take away some of that, when we clean up some of that, especially amongst the Black community, I think what we'll see is a rise in a more secure family structure. Like, when you begin to just choose your relationships based on compatibility and different things rather than social status or foolishness. So,
you make a really interesting point, and it's something that I would take time to really think on, and that is that women are more equipped. Equipped for several relationships at a time. What immediately jumped into my head was, emotionally, I don't know. I don't know if we are, because our emotions get so wrapped up in our relationships. And I have thought for a long time that is because when we and I'm talking about an intimate relationship now, that when we have a relationship with our sexual partner, we take in all of that energy that comes through his penis.
Okay.
Yeah. And now there might be some women who are really good at getting rid of that energy, expending that energy afterwards, which is what you would need to do in order to be able to receive another bit of sexual energy from someone else.
From someone else. Yeah.
Um, and then what happens to you in terms of reaching a place with your sexual partner
Uh-huh.
that is almost, not almost, but that is otherworldly, that is
Uh-uh.
in the, and I'm not just talking about having an orgasm. I'm talking
Right.
about a spiritual connection that
Yeah.
takes you to your two stars, your two shooting stars at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
um, how would that work for a woman if she has several different relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're talking about polyandry, that's a household. That's
Mm-hmm.
one woman with, let's say, three different men, and each
Yeah.
of those men fulfills a certain role within the family. That's
Uh-huh.
something different than just having relationships with several men, because you're
Right.
building a family together. The children that you have belong to in a good relation, polyandric relationship. Um,
Uh-huh.
the children belong to everybody, just like in a polygamous
Right.
relationship. The
That's it.
children belong to everybody. Excuse me. And it's the women who choose the other women who are going to come into the household to make sure that everybody kind of gets along,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know? Um,
Uh-huh.
but interesting that you say that, because now that has put me on a new path to look at that. And, maybe,
Well, thank you because you gave me some information to think about. Like, you
mm,
know, and everything that can be done, not necessarily should be done. So I'm not talking about
exactly.
whether or not it's advantageous.
Yeah, no,
You
no,
know what I mean? It's
it's
more, I
just
wasn't,
possible.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's possible, but is that the best choice for us? Yeah. Um, is yeah, like
uh,
yeah, is saying
it's
having multiple
saying
partnerships, what does that do for the family and
family and
relationship?
relationship,
Yeah,
and
and it probably causes more problems than it solves. A lot of it, but it depends. It also
yes,
depends on the consciousness of the people involved. I definitely
exactly,
feel like these are choices that people have to make based on what their situation is, what their consciousness is, and also their intention around family and relationships. Do you know what I
hmm
mean? Again, this is a part of having your own thoughts in a place where it may not be the popular thought, or you can find support for whatever you're up to, but you may form something unique. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
Like I feel like our ori is the key to us coming up with creative solutions for old problems.
exactly. Yes, I
And so,
definitely.
yeah,
hmm
because we can begin to innovate, and it's so needed right now, like to innovate our ideas around financial empowerment, economic development, wealth building, and generational wealth, especially for African people in this country. Um, Innovate around our relationships with one another, innovate around how we connect as sisters, how brothers connect with each other, how we connect as a family, how do we educate our children like in a holistic fashion, whether they're in a regular school or not. Like how are we need to innovate some solutions that work, that can be translated across the board. So if somebody comes up with a best practice, how are we sharing that information with each other?
Yes,
Innovate. We need innovation around what our values are. How do we live according to our own values in a place that maybe doesn't support them?
exactly.
Where the power structure is not designed for us to participate at all, really. And
Yeah,
so, what are the innovations that how is our spiritual discipline, how is our spirituality, our spiritual lives and relationships supporting our humanity. In other words, when we come into the earth, when we come into the marketplace, do we have a product that's worthy of being in the marketplace? Like, you know what I mean? What are we bringing to the table? And so, like, I feel like Ori is the linchpin for us. Like, it's the fulcrum that everything sits on, that we can reach a tipping point where it just becomes the thing that Black people do. There's some things that we say, and not all Black people do them, but
Yeah.
so, and they're widespread enough in the Black community that, yeah, if you do them, it doesn't cause any alarm. It doesn't. It's not a thing that it makes anybody surprised. You know what I mean? And some of the things are dysfunctional, but it would be nice to replace them with spiritual practices that will also help us. Like, we're the only people of color on earth that don't really put something on our children when they're born to protect them. But we are burying our children at a rate that's unreal.
Let's go back to that place. Put something on our children to protect them. Exactly what are you referring to there?
So,
are you referring to a ritual, a ceremony, name?
Like, even it could be a ritual, a ceremony, an ide, an aleke, you know, something like some type of. I don't want to say talisman. It's not the word that I'm looking for, but it could also be a talisman. You know what I mean? In general, like. That is a part of what we have access to, but we don't. It's not like a widespread practice among African Americans.
Okay, and Yeye says African traditional religious training does this, though, and I mean, I think she said yes.
Yeah.
That does happen at a naming ceremony for sure, but that's not the norm for Black folk. And we take our children, let's talk about the Christian side of things. We take our children to be baptized. Is that protecting them in any way? I wonder. That's a question.
It hasn't proven to be effective, though.
Not to me, but
it hasn't proven to be effective. You know, but I know, like I'm still. I will say this, notwithstanding all of the spiritual work that's done for me and the different ides, ileke, all the stuff that I have that protects me. I know there are times when I can feel the energy of my grandmother and my aunts, you know, their ashe as a protection for me. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Oh gosh, yes. For me, the protection comes in many different forms, but certainly the protection of the Egun, the protection of my ancestors. And see, I'm an ancient wisdom carrier. So for me, I always go back to the ancient ones. I know my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and one of my great-great-grandmothers. I can call their names. I can go to my ancestral altar, talk to them, call their names, grandfathers, great-grandfather. I can't call the name of my ancestor that lived 3, 4, 5, 10,000 years ago. But whatever the name is, it's in me, and it's still my ancestor, and that's the ancestor.
That's true. And you know what else? Yeye mentioned naming ceremonies and placenta. You know, there are names that protect you from psychic attacks.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that we do, but there are also ways that are our specifically ancestral ways that we are getting back to that I'm just waiting for us to get to the critical mass that's going to make it just the thing that we do, right? So then you
Yeah.
see less of our children falling by the wayside in these crazy ways. Like I feel like a lot of that is for us to bring our attention to things that we could be doing more widespread, things that could be more prevalent, and it would help us a great deal. I, we have a great deal of untapped power here, and I feel like the Ori, which
Yes.
everybody has, and your ancestors, everybody got that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And those are common things that we could just. I think we start to build them into our community as the way that we operate. Like
Operate.
it's very rare you go to an all black event and somebody's not pouring libation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even poetry events or open mics, whatever, shows, Kwanzaa celebrations, all these things. We're African Liberation Day. We're pouring libation. That's a part of what we do, and I think it's awesome that the ancestors are getting recognition in that way, because it's a big part of who we are. We wear these T-shirts and all the stuff, and we're our ancestors' wildest dreams. I think I was talking to Ro or LaDonna the other day, and I was like, I just can go back to the ancestors that I know their stories and try to imagine what they were dreaming of. And maybe not so much in the sense of the particular things, because their the landscape of their life was different than mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got internet, computers, iPhones, all the stuff. They didn't have all that stuff, but just these ideas of uh, an increased freedom. Like what does freedom look like from their perspective? What was the freedom that they experienced, and then what was the freedom that they never could work out in their lifetime? And what that is like, a lot of what they were, the love, the human connection, the empathy, the respect, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
wealth, all these things that they wanted, and maybe we sometimes can take for granted. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak for anybody else, because I'm sure like you're wiser than me, but I have only lived this long, and I notice things about myself, like I'll take certain things for granted, and that was a part of me. May have been the one thing that my great grandmother was like, "Ooh, if I could just get this, I'd be happy." You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I could,
Mm-hmm.
without any restrictions, feel the air off the ocean on my face, like at my leisure. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So when we talk about things from working from home, like that's a big deal for people who've been on the plantation.
Exactly. And what is this going to look like next year this time? We really
Yeah.
don't know. You said a lot of things, and of course I didn't write down my notes. So, but one thing you said is, how does our spirituality support our humanity? And I think that's a basic question. I think that's something that we can really delve into and look at, um, deeply, because uh, I'm happy that so many of us are re uh, reestablishing our own African spiritual traditions, reliving them, remembering them, all of that. I'm very happy about. What
Yes.
concerns me, however, is that and this is only human, but as we
Hmm.
relive and relearn and all of this, remember, we are bringing our Christian, um, not not the good. We're bringing our Christian dogma.
Mm.
We're carrying that like a backpack,
Yeah.
and we're superimposing that on our African traditions. And we're going to have to figure out as a community, as an African spiritual traditional systems community. I'm not just speaking about Ifa or Lukumi. I'm speaking about Vudan. I'm speaking about Ekon. I'm speaking about all of the traditions that are coming in, and especially the Kemetic sciences. We, all of us, have to, because there's not that much difference in these. I mean, we have our own ways of doing things, but basically, we're going back to Africa and Sankofa. We're going back to Africa and we're getting our spiritual traditions back. And it feels mighty fine. But on our back, we're carrying all this Christian Western garbage that has been turned in our own DNA, because that was what sustained our immediate ancestors. It's nothing, it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but what it is that we have to recognize it for what it is and not superimpose it into our African traditions, which is what we have been doing in many, many cases.
Yeah, I think we talk about paradigm shifts a lot, and that's another one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? A part of what drives dogma is this idea that my God is better than your God.
Isn't that the most ridiculous thing? I remember being a child. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's so like germane to this discussion, because when you talk about Ori being your part of God, then that's an ego trip. You know what I mean? It's the ego trip, and so it's like a collective ego trip. It's basically mirroring white supremacy in a lot of ways, right? Because this whole idea that what I got is better than what you got. So what I say supersedes what you say. My well-being supersedes your well-being, and it fails to see so much. Like when you operate in a dogmatic way, you fail to see so much. And there is not just in Ifa, like in Ifa, we're clear that Orunmila is a witness of creation, and that witness is a holistic view, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the beginning and the end in all parts of what is. And so when when we say witness to creation, we're talking about that choosing of the head, right?
I was going to say a witness to the creation of all Ori.
Right. It's that concept that you have a sacred contract before you come to earth, and you say, this is what I'm gonna do when I get there. This is all the stuff I'm gonna go through. These are the people I have agreed to help me. This is what, you know what I mean? All these things are set out before you come into the earth. And so being the witness to that, and this is in all indigenous spiritual traditions, there is the concept of the witness, right? That is then also the oracle, because it is the holder of that information of what your agreement was that you were going to do in the earth, because when you get here, you immediately forget. So that you start to remember in sparks, and things, may spark your memory of this and that or whatever, and you go through your life experience in the pursuit of achieving your destiny, whatever it was that you agreed to be, do, and have while you were here. So I said all that to say that the witness is the thing that should keep you, the reverence to the witness, the acknowledgement of that as a divine force, also puts you in a state of humility. Like, I don't even know everything I came here to do. Right? Now, whether you recognize the witness as a part of the creator, whether you recognize it as a separate deity, however your spirituality is set up. You know what I mean?
Mm,
How it's set up. This is the thing where it puts you in a more like holistic view, right? Because then you know that there's more sides to this.
hmm
When you have that responsibility, I think the piece that is missing often, um, in that transition from good, bad, God and devil, all these. If I can't blame the devil, if I can't blame God, then I can blame the devil. You know, that type of thing. It's taking the responsibility off of you, and
hmm
then it's also taking the focus away from how you're made and the truth of the situation, right?
Okay, yes.
So yeah, and so you don't. It's not like a self-blaming thing, but it is then an investigation into how did we arrive at this point,
Yes.
which is your primary concern. I'm trying to get somewhere, so now I need to know how I got here, or I need to know how to get from here back to
Yeah.
the road that takes me where I'm going.
Yeah.
More importantly, you know what I mean?
Yeah. May I offer you something?
Yes, ma'am.
This is just, I'm not going to say it's just semantics because it really is important.
Uh-huh.
You said you don't even know all that you're supposed to be doing here. You don't
Yeah.
you don't know. I just would encourage you to look at it as you don't remember because
Remember.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you. Thank you. That's right. That's a
Yeah.
perfect correction.
You
And the words are
know.
everything. So yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you just don't remember. And as you go through life, then you have those aha moments when you say, oh, even about experiences you have when you're trying to figure out, well, what the hell did I learn from this? And then
Right.
10 years down the road, you say, oh, I get it now. Or this is an example. You treat somebody poorly. See, I'm a relationship person. You treat somebody really bad. I won't say exact. You can come up in your own imagination about
I
what you
should.
did to them. Um, 10 years down the road, the same thing happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you say to yourself, oh, I get it now. I
Why
understand.
it's not okay.
I understand how I hurt this other person,
Yeah.
you know, because that it don't feel good when it's happening to me.
No. Yeah. I feel you. That's very true. So
Hmm
it is remembrance. Thank you, Ian. That's
Yeah. Remember, because but somebody here said some of our ancestors would grab a stick and beat our asses. Yes, they would. Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, we. It's a gift when you get to see things from all sides. Like
It
that's
is.
spiritual. I really. That's a big part of discernment is to see because appropriate action rests on your perception of things.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take appropriate action unless that, and that's why for me, um, divination is a big deal
Mm-hmm.
because when it's all like I can only see one thing. Like somebody did something to me and I'm so mad, I can only see that. Like there's other pieces to this, but they all just fade out from the
Yes.
emotion being so highly charged. And so, it's good to calm down and be in a receptive position and be able to really get the information that you need in order to understand why how you're in the center of this. What is there
Mm-hmm.
for you this experience? And then what do you need to do to move forward? Because we
Exactly.
could be so enamored with an experience, positive or negative, that we don't even want to move forward. We just like, I'm just gonna stay here because it kind of feels good to be angry, or it kind of feels good to be, whatever it is. It gets to be a habit of emotion, and we don't want to move past it. But that's not what we're here for. And so, um, whatever
What?
work there is to be done.
Yeah.
is
What I
is-
always, what I always say to myself in those situations is, how's this working for you, ELA? How's this working for you? Yeah, it don't feel so good. So what you gonna do about it?
Right.
You know?
And that's the question that you have to, that's the way we have to approach dogma. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
order to form it for ourselves, like, if we really are honest and willing to take a look at what the answer to that question may be, things, traditions that we may have had in our family, or things my mama told me this, and her mama told her, and her mama told her, and then one of those persons was enslaved, and that's how this started. You might want to start another conversation.
Yes.
This might not be
Yeah.
the thing you want to keep telling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and not even from the sense of you don't want to remember, but just everything that we know might not be serving us.
Oh,
We may need to
definitely.
know good things. We
Yeah.
may need to know good things. And so that information, how does it get to us? And when we talk about heart and mind agreement, that's the big that's a big thing in development, spiritual development, that has to do with your ori. You can't, if your ori is like, no, it's not going to work for you. You can do all the elbows in the world, but it's
Mm-hmm.
going to your ori that says, okay, let's go. All right,
Yeah.
let's move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
important that we take care of our heads, of our consciousness, of our Ori Inu, our Iponwiti Owa, which is like our spiritual twin in heaven, that we acknowledge in our being, in our critical thinking processes, in the way that we choose to deal with each other. Like, okay, this is how I'm made. And once you get that in your system, like, this is how I'm made. This is also how your sister is made.
Yes.
It's also how
Yes.
your brother is made. It's also how your mama is made. You know what I mean? We
Mm-hmm.
can start looking at I think it will take that in order for us to really um, innovate some effective ways to educate our children,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing, that acknowledges how they're made, like who they are, and the importance of them fulfilling their destiny in the earth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is the primary goal, and then everything else secondary.
Yeah. 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 Um, well, I'm sure we all have that special relationship with our Ori. Every morning I open my eyes and gotta put my hands on my head and, uh,
Yeah.
thank my Ori and acknowledge my Ori and ask that I keep everything in alignment, you know, and that I vibrate at a higher frequency. Um, you know, you have to have that relationship. And for people who, they're Christian or whatever, you have a relationship with your head. You can just call it your head if that makes you happy. You don't have to call it Ori. You can just use the word. You have a special relationship with your head because if you don't have your head, you dead. You can get rid of an arm, a leg, a foot.
That's how
Some of
you
them,
feel anything. That's how
yeah,
you
some.
feel anything. You
That's right.
separate the head from the body.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you gotta be very nice to your head, and speak to it and let it know that you love your head. You know. So
Yes.
our Ori is a very vital part of our humanity,
Yes. Yes.
even though it is the connection to our destiny. It's very key to our humanity. And for many of us in this Western world, we've lost touch. Well, let me put it this way: our Oris must be wondering what the hell happened to y'all.
Right.
You know, because we ain't
I think
acting right.
our ancestors probably like, what's really going on?
Hmm hmm
You know, I always like to give them the limitations of humanity with all the emotional changes that we be going through, but sometimes you just know, like, when things are so out of whack, you got to really look at where are we living from. You know what I mean? And that's a huge deal for me. And also, always like, or it's you. Like,
hmm hmm
I do. We're gonna go ahead and go on. I wanna I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to acknowledge the people that have been
Yes,
that
I,
tuned in today and
I'm
they've been chatting up a storm, and I really haven't been able to. We're gonna get on top of this chat situation so that we can all be in the conversation together. Allison Joseph Patrick, Yay, Fayomi Faladay, yeah, Cookies and Cakes, Q
hmm
Vincent, Linda Imani Barrett, LaDonna was in here today. Who else? I think I got everybody. If I miss Betty Davis, if I miss you, blame my eyesight because I don't have my glasses on.
hmm
Uh, and Michelle and Jerry Forquan, I can't. I'm trying to make sure I pronounce your
Oh,
name right.
yes,
Sorry.
Michelle. Cookie here says, listen, how can mental clarity and stability be gained back after having after having been under a psychic attack? Cookie,
Mm,
woo!
you,
Oh, and then she says Donald Trump. Well, that makes it clearer. Now I understand the question.
that means we all under psychic attack. Yeah, I'm gonna say that 90% of everything is staying clean. I'm not. I don't even feel like I'm as diligent as I should be. But
hmm
keeping your head clean, keeping your body clean, physically clean and spiritually clean, and so there's a lot of ways to do that. If you have an owl that you go to for divination, it's good to get um, personal prescriptions for a lot of things, especially healing, like from an attack. I understand that sometimes the healing is just as traumatic as the attack itself.
Yes,
It could take a while, and so you have to be diligent and loving of
yes.
yourself.
Because you have to
And
reach that balance. So sometimes
yeah,
the remedy is as painful
mm-hmm.
as what's going on with you.
Yeah, because
Yes.
a lot of times you'll find that there was something already there that corresponded to the attack and that has to also be cleaned out, which is
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like cutting open a wound to clean out the pus and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that things heal back properly. So it can be a painful situation, and it's I feel best to do it under the supervision of a trained spiritual practitioner, whatever discipline that you're under.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is why African spirituality across the board is practiced in community because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we have to care for each other. And I know, especially in this country where we are often disparate, like we're spread out and we don't always communicate well, you got to find your people, man, because your people are going to be the ones who support you and getting yourself back together. And it's not easy. There's not like a quick fix, cure all that, especially if you feel like something outside of you has imposed itself upon you, and then you also had something there for it to gain traction. So both those things have to be dealt with. And then you also need to be protected from that happening again, and protected while you're in the process of being opened up and vulnerable to get whatever it is off you.
Yeah. Linda, I love this. Pain breaks the shell of understanding.
Okay.
Boy, love it. Love it. Mm-hmm.
It's like when you want your muscles to grow, right? And you're working out, you break it before you build it up. That's how it works. And so the constant process of rebirth. And birthing is not an easy thing. Ask any doula. Ask any midwife. Birth is no joke.
Yeah.
Ask any mother.
But it's such it's no joke, but that's the closest you come to the God of your understanding, to being in the room with a true miracle, to see life come from your body or from someone else's body, and you can hold it in your hands, and that's why we must cover our children as they come forth in in love, in ritual, in ceremony, in offering them up to the heavens and saying, this comes from roots, and saying, the only thing greater than you, behold, the only thing greater than you. Yes, indeed. Take them out there to that full moon and let them behold what is greater than them. The only thing is everything else, or behold who you really are. You're as mighty as the universe. You know, we can have ceremonies like that. When I'm thinking of the projects, because I come out of the projects of New York. So I'm thinking, if the mothers in the projects got together when one of them gave birth, and then after 3 days or 7 days or however many days they all went up outside to rejoice at this child, and we covered all of our children in that way. That's powerful. It may just seem ridiculous to some of us, but it's really calling down spirit on that life, and helping it to find its way through this life path that it has chosen. Yeah. And someone mentioned the placenta. Yes, we need to, but some hospitals give you hell trying to get the placenta of your child. But if you can get that placenta and then plant it by a tree, and then whenever that child is ill, just go to that tree. First of all, you've established a relationship between your child and that tree, and a powerful one. These are all things that we used to do that we now frown upon, but we only frowned upon it because of the way we were taught by this Western way of thinking. That's not our tradition. Everybody should have their own traditions and be allowed to practice them. And that's what we have to do.
Yep, we got to reclaim it, because that was part of the hard drive life.
Oh, there's a thing here. When is Fayomi Falade coming back? Yay, yay, when you coming back? Come on now.
Yeah, we want to know too. When is she coming back?
Mm-hmm.
Um. Oh, Rolanda,
Yes.
can you talk about ways that maybe mothers who are giving birth can make it easier to do what they need to do with the placenta? Were you guys talk? You guys talk about any of that this morning in the Black
No,
women?
because we were just basically talking about what was happening with Black women before COVID, after COVID.
Oh,
I'm a firm believer in if you really want to impact life, you have to
uh-huh.
start before it's born.
Yeah.
So pregnancy is probably the most crucial time in a woman's life where she learns to give birth not just to her child, but to herself as well. And I think it's important that she gets prenatal care and all that stuff is great. But what I find is indicator if it doesn't matter what your education is, what your economical status is, Black women have poor birth outcomes. Black babies die 2 to 3 times, sometimes 4 times, depending on what state you're in, than other groups. That's to say a poor white woman with no teeth and who's been on meth have a better birth outcome than a Black woman who was college educated and supposedly did all the right things. So that right here will tell you that there is something else going on with us that we're not, no amount of healthcare is going to change that. So what is it that we aren't really providing for the environment? Because what I find is that the sister talk about psychic attacks. Donald Trump to me is just, I'm so used to people like that. I don't even equate him with any kind of attack on me. But the attack that affects Black people the most is how we greet and treat each other. So if a Black woman is pregnant, they get more like, girl, you pregnant? They're like, oh my God, you're pregnant. When is your baby? All of that is immediate energy that can make a person feel like, wow, I'm carrying something special. Or I know this is a damn mess, huh? This is a curse. That's all of that is energy. So if a woman is pregnant, if a Black woman is pregnant, if a Black girl, God forbid, is pregnant, we should not be throwing our energy of like, girl, it's gonna be hard. Like she already know that. But she needs and here is like, this is beautiful, regardless of the circumstance, because life has chosen her to come through. So we're supposed to me, that's the covering.
Yeah.
That's the true covering, is when we're there with each other, when we loving each other. Everything else is symbolic. My great nephew wears this. They look like red bead. They're clear beads, like glass. He's had them since he was a baby, so now he'll be one of the first, and that is to ward off evil spirits. His parents came up with that. Did that little research. And then one day I said, what's these beads? Like, what is it? Because he wears them all the time. It's like, what y'all gonna do with them? No. But they're so cute. And so I think Black people have a way of trying to create, because when you talk about their hard drive being cleaned off, I think part of what has happened is now we're going to create, some of us are not going back to the old way. We may borrow some from the old way. We're really not going back there like that. We may have to create our own, because when you create your own, you have to research. You just don't take traditions that people said that worked, that we know was kind of suspect. That we know God is in this mess. Because we were following along with some tribal mess that we don't want to be honest about. And I think sometimes when you have to start over, you have to be very honest about, does this really work, or should we be doing it this way? It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever read The Joys of Motherhood. This is an old book. The book I've read when I was probably like by a Nigerian writer. Joys of Motherhood. And this was a woman who wrote this story about a king and his daughter couldn't get pregnant. She married the first man. The man beat on her a lot. He ended up coming back home. And then then she tried to marry somebody else, and then she didn't have any kids. And part of the energy that was happening with her had everything to do with her father and some of the traditions they did in their village that now is following her, like burying people alive with folks when they die. I don't know who came up with that. So when the father ended up breaking all of that, that's when his daughter was able to become pregnant. The kid that had like 10 kids. This is a really good book. This is an old school book. It's called The Joys of Motherhood.
Joys of Motherhood.
I think so. I gotta look that up. This is by a Nigerian writer, and what that made me think of, what I got out of that, is that sometimes, because some of us are so desperate for culture, is that sometimes we don't even take the backward parts of culture and act like that is culture, when that is dangerous. You know, another story I could share is when when everybody should know this, is about the roast. And the young girl's watching her mom make the roast, and she cuts off the back of the roast and sits it in the pan. The pan is really big. And she's like, well, mama, isn't that a part of the roast? I said, girl, I don't know. This is what my mama taught me, how I learned to make a roast. So she goes and asks her grandmother. And the grandmother's like, girl, I don't know. That's what I learned from my mama. Then when she asks the great-grandmother, she said, girl, at the time, my pan was too small. So here we are carrying on tradition that we don't even know the origins in which they use that. Like when I hear people talking about taking on more than one wife, it's like, dude, you could barely keep your own mind right. What would you do with 5 black women? After you laid the pipe, what's left? Can you deal with their emotional needs, their spiritual needs, their mental? No, you can't, because you can barely do that for yourself. Women, we work. And so you have to work in all the relationships, because we skip over the rest of the book that talk about responsibility, making sure everybody has their own. Like, we skip over all of that. We just think about, I just drop my seeds everywhere. At some point, we have to like really look at this thing and know that we are really in control, and we are really talking about our ancestors and what we learned from them and what we're learning because we're in a new time. Some of the stuff we can't take with it. It can't go because we're not gonna make it. That may sound real nice in 1492, but 2020, I'm not seeing it. And I can see the basis of it because we know how energy works. That is consistent. But I also know sometimes even how we name our kids is a cover. So if your kid name is Little Fuck Up, and then he gets, I don't know what's wrong with this boy. Listen to his name. Why did you name him that? Let me tell you, a young brother hit me to that. I was watching Bastards of the Party. I don't know if I ever seen that. And at the end, they were talking about all these people who had lost their lives in the gang war, gang war in Los Angeles. And he said one of the things he recognized that like a video viewer, like this person's name was Little Killer, but his real name was like Rodney Johnson. He said we should be calling him Rodney Johnson, not Little Killer. That's energy fitting on him. That's his covering. So when we say, and then it makes him look less human, and then he feels less human. So I really believe that our ancestors, they may not have been super educated, whatever the hell that means. They know when they say, hey, beautiful, and hey, come here, sweetheart, that made your heart feel lighter. Yeah. You couldn't come over to them acting a fool. Like immediately, that word, that's a covering. I learned a lot about words and how words curse people. That's what cursing means. It's to put like a bad spell on a person. You be like, this immediately. Like, I just done cursed this person out. But we say it lightly, but the words have energy. And I met adults who are still struggling over stuff people said to them when they were 10 and they're 50.
Yes. Yeah.
You be like, damn, I want to whoop their ass myself. Who told me that? We about to who ride. But I think when you're having a baby, all of that energy what the baby comes into, and I would just have to say this. No matter how hard things were for our people, there was something about new life that made us all feel very hopeful. Because in our psyche, we believe that this baby would be in times that we can never even dream of that they would be. And I think sometimes we've lost that ability to give our kids even that sometimes. Say, wow, you all see days that I only dreamt of. When I look at how I live, I was like, my mom had no idea the seed she had planted so deep was going to allow me to live how I live right now. Because I don't scrub floors for a living. My mama scrub floors for me.
Mm-hmm.
I make my job. My mother did not. She did not do that. You know, but she knew by what she was giving me was going to help me have days that she couldn't even bring with.
Mm-hmm.
I drive about the whole country, never had an incident. You know what that must have been like for people who ran about the South to go to wherever they had to go. And I drive through the South in the air-conditioned van, staying in nice hotels. That's a part of somebody's vision that they didn't even know that it was going to take me that far or us that far. That's a covering.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's the covering.
That's a real covering. It's like, wow. People, I know when people say prayers are stored up. I'm living on somebody's stored up prayers. I'm gonna be honest.
Exactly.
I'm living on
I
that.
know I am. I know I am.
Yeah, me too. I swear, I reflect though. That carries me through though. So even when I get like, I'll be like, yeah, fool, but you ain't stealing nobody's toilets right now.
Exactly.
And you ain't even got to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get to rediscover who we were before then with those people. Sometimes this gets me. I think about Black folks who lived and died here and didn't know who they really were. Never heard of Africa. Didn't know where they were. I mean, people, you talk about that hard job being white, they really tried to write every residue piece of hip shaking, the hair, like they tried to suppress everything. And there was hundreds of thousands of people who lived here and died and not even knowing where they're from. You know, like their grandmamas that never seen their mama or daddy again, never seen their children again. That's heavy.
Man.
That's heavy.
That's real heavy.
Yeah.
And then I get to speak here and do Africa, and sometimes I feel the residue when people say, "You dress Afrocentric." I said, "No, I dress in my culture." What about you? What about you? Because we certainly don't belong to Levi Strauss.
Okay.
Exactly.
So I will wear some things right here. But I'm just saying, so I feel like all of that is here. I be thinking my ancestors, they be working me out. Even if I feel like I want to do some stupid shit, they show me like, "Now you know you're not gonna do that, right?" I know. I was just thinking about. Well, we heard you thinking, so we gotta let you know you're not gonna do it.
Ro, where do you hear that, Ro? Where do you hear it? Does it come in your head? Does it come in your ears? Does it come in your stomach, your gut? Where? Or all over?
It comes all over. But I'm gonna tell you this. Sometimes I get those messages when babies are. When I'm playing with my little great nephew, I'm telling you, my great nephew has these eyes. Well, I think he's definitely an elder, like who's returned. You know, he's an ancestor, and so he has a way of looking at me like, you know that, I'm like, sometimes he look at me like, that's right. Because he'll be looking at me like, you know that shit. And then he'll go back to being his baby. Like he'll jump right out of it and be like, but in that moment, he'll be looking at me like,
you know better than that.
And you'd be like, yeah, I'm not.
You know what? That makes me wonder if some parents have that experience with their children. You know what I mean? and if that makes them feel a certain kind of way.
Oh.
Because
Yeah.
I've seen that though. Like I was thinking about something real tough, like, and I was going down the road that wasn't even cool. And then I might just turn my head in a store or something and see somebody's baby, and the baby will look at me a certain way, and I'll be like, "Hey, thank you for coming back."
Right on.
You know, because that's how I greet babies.
Right on.
And they'll give me a look and then a lot of information.
Yeah. Babies,
like, nah,
they give
that's
me
not
all
your
the time. They give me all the time. When my niece was now like 22, she was little, I would never forget this. I had this thing with my mom that I did not I didn't like ironing clothes. I just thought that was I thought that was oppressive. But I just didn't want to iron the clothes. And so I was known for wearing winter clothes. You know? And one day I was getting ready to go somewhere, and my niece must have been about 4. And she looked at me because I was getting ready to, you know, I was at her mom's. She looked at me, she said, it was like in a blink, she said, "You're not going to iron it, Auntie?" Just like that. And I was like, let me go iron this. That was my mother. Because my mother would be asleep. I'd be going to school, and she'd be like, iron that blouse. She don't even see me, but the blouse on. You know, and so when she said, "You're not gonna iron that blouse," and she like put her head to the side, I was like, "That's okay. That's my mama. I still gonna iron." I've had those kind of moments where it's like, you know, you be thinking you got something, and that's just how the universe would just show up. Or I'll be like, I'm not doing this no more. Then I will pass somebody, and they will remind me to stay on my square. And I'll be like, I wasn't really doing it. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna go get me a, because I can't be doing this no more. And then as soon as I go get my little walk on, and then I will walk right past my, oh my God, Mama Ro. And I'll be like, yeah, I ain't gonna go on and do what you got. That kind of thing, but that also takes you being in tune. See, I don't ignore my ancestors. Because I have something called, I don't know about y'all, but I have immediate karma. If I attempt to do so, I can have a bad thought and then I'll trip over some shit and be like, okay, I shouldn't have thought about it like that. So I'm like, I can't stand it. And then that's all blam, like it ain't that deep, bro. That's like immediate karma. So I can't do certain stuff like immediately I would get messed up. I'd be like, yeah. Why did I even think? I ain't even thinking about that. No, I won't even think about it. I can't deal with that. No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Like I have more thoughts. Like I'm not gonna sit in bed. Like, you know, so it's kind of like I feel like all of that is your ancestors. And then I would be honest, knowing your history, and I'm talking about your immediate history. I'm gonna be very clear. I love the world history, all that's beautiful. But if you don't know your immediate line, kind of like being in the clouds. So for me, when I see deaf in mute people, I immediately think of my grandmother who was deaf and mute. Her and her husband both. So I look at the advantages that they have now. My grandmother didn't have none of that. My grandmother was born in 1906. So my mom used to always say when she would see the caption, she'd be like, I wish my mother had it. So I can't act like, I see things and I know that it's them. I'm reminded that I'm supposed to be doing something. I can't act like, well, that's just them because I am them.
Yes.
So I think I made this generation move. That cracks me up. Black people be out the projects for two decades and act like they never lived it. It's like, dude, you were just in the damn projects with the elevator not working. So
you got that right.
You just got here. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, my kids, they're privileged. They got out, but dude, you're supposed to do something. You're supposed to build a higher wall so people can't get over it. You're supposed to tear the goddamn wall down. That's what you're supposed to do. But at least help somebody. They always say poor black people, when you make something of yourself, you can't just ever go live amongst other people because you're always tied to your family. White people make money, they whole relative behind. You have a new identity. We make some money, that's your aunt that made some money. Like immediately somebody died, how much is the burial? I'm gonna send y'all some money. Like that's a part of being connected. Your kid trying to go, how much is the tuition? I can put it on that. Like that's what we supposed to do. Not build the wall up higher. Last thing. I don't know if y'all ever seen the Drop Squad. So the Drop Squad is about a group of black folks that kidnap black people and then brainwash them back to being black. This is the classic film, one of my favorites. And so the people who are on the Drop Squad is like Malcolm, Harriet, you get where I'm going? Garvey, they're all of these people. It's really like, these are people that kidnap folks and be like people like the crooked politician and they basically break them down. So there's this one girl, she calls the Drop Squad on her brother because he is like in the ad agency, they make awful odds to sell stuff to black people, like awful ad, So he gets kidnapped and then they kind of break it. It's hard to kind of break. And the line I remember the most from that movie say, brother, when you make it over the wall, your job is not to build a higher wall. Your job is to tear the wall down. And when he says it, because the guy, he comes up with this quote, we wear the mask that grin and lie or whatever. And the other dude, he throws this coat on him. And then the brother said, some people wear the mask to survive. You can't get it on. It's like certain sayings you hear, you be like, that's kind of deep. Because some people have to wear the mask to survive, and I get it. Like Henry Daniel said, I'd rather play a maid and be $700 a month than be a maid and $7 a month. That's her having to wear the mask that she has to do what she has to do. But for somebody to be very happy to be like, I'm gonna be a part of your person. I can work on that. I can do that. That's something. There's something wrong with you. That's when you need that check. That's when you got to check your head when you want to see dirt. That's when you got to check your head when you're excited when you see people beat each other's brains out. That's when you're excited and you help the reality shows have a gazillion number of people watching it because they're spreading the guilt and the madness.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see us talking to each other crazy, you know that that's the frequency. Because now I understand everything is on frequency.
Right.
Now you got to look at your frequency. Why are you so attached to that frequency? Why do you like to see women fighting each other over some man that probably can't even pee straight? I don't know. Like, I just never understood the concept. So, anyway, I'm not. But I listened to the whole conversation. It was great.
You have anything to tell the people in closing?
Yeah.
We are an hour and a half in.
Yeah.
Me. Have a good day, and think about some of the things that you've heard said in this past hour and a half. I think there's many nuggets of truth that have been shared. So just think on it.
Right on. What about you? You come over to play?
I think what you said was a beautiful close, and when you find yourself responding to a particular frequency, it's a good time to check in with your divinity. Like, is that in alignment? Is that what you know what I mean? Like, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to move ourselves back into integrity. I think integrity is going to be a big part of how we move forward. Like, let's really be honest with each other about where we're at in the game. You could be examining something, and that takes time. Take that time. That's time for you. You are that important that you could take the time to be like, I wonder why this even makes me happy.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this amusing to me? Why do I find this entertaining? You know what I mean?
Right on.
And really look at it, because it might be pointing to something that's driving you. Might be pointing to some trauma. Might be pointing to an attitude you have towards something that ain't working. And if it ain't working, stop doing it.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, family.
Yeah,
We'll be back here tomorrow. Right on.
All right.
Don't forget to join us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Earth Mama Yelling Network.